Welcome back to Simply Green Radio here on Ask the Experts, brought to you by Simply Green Energy and Mr. Ruger Plumbing. In studio tonight with Maurice Aubry, also Pete Morisi, True Story Pete, Brenna Hartman, and joining us in studio is Chuck Strang, the president of Total Heat Systems. Chuck, a pleasure to have you here in studio.
Thank you. Glad to be here. I hope I can answer a few questions for you.
And if folks want to join in on the conversation, they can do so, 222-1180. Again, that number, 222-1180. And I will open it up to you guys. We're here talking about home heating costs.
All right, great. Well, Chuck, welcome to the studio tonight, and I thought it'd be appropriate maybe if you would explain to the listeners a little bit some of your background on this geothermal before we really get into some of these more specific things. Why don't you give me a real quick overview of what you've learned in the last several, 4 or 5 years? This geothermal.
Well, I went out to Oklahoma State University and took a course on installing the systems, and it was quite informative. Dr. Bose was one of the professors that I learned from, and he was really one of the founders of it in the modern era of geothermal. But I became a certified installer by going out there and have installed several systems around the area.
And Mr. Bose, has he got anything to do with the radio or
the speakers?
The speakers.
I think that's a different Bose.
Okay, but no, more realistically, Chuck, Dr. Bose, from what I understand about him is that he has actually gotten into doing quite a few different ground loops. Is that correct? I mean, is that what kind of their mainstay is there at Oklahoma State? Is testing and analyzing the different performances of these different ground loops, slinky loops?
Yeah, back up. What's a loop?
There he goes. Techie.
Chuck, straighten us out.
Well, yeah, out there they have experimented with several different types of water circulation systems in the ground, I guess we'll call it, because that's basically where the heat is being drawn up from, is absorbed by the water from the ground, and in several different forms, horizontal loops, vertical loops, or slinky loops.
And those are just different configurations of the same piping, correct?
Exactly.
All right, so.
And the main idea is basically extracting the energy from the earth?
Correct. You have to keep the water in the ground long enough to exchange for the water to absorb the heat from the ground.
So let me see if I understand. The center of the earth is really hot, right?
Right.
And as the heat dissipates through the soil and approaches the earth's crust, that gradient there, you get to a point where you get to 6, 7, 8, 10 feet deep, just outside in their backyard, and what's the temperature underground there, Chuck?
Well, at this time of year, it varies. This time of year, maybe between 35 and 45 degrees, depending on the soil.
So that's a lot warmer than the air temperature.
Right, Pete. That's exactly.
Now,
where
here's
you get
that
heat
seminal moment. Here it comes. Are you ready? I'm with Chuck in the hallway, and I looked at Chuck right in the eye, and I said, Chuck, you're going to be on the radio with us. He goes, yep. I said, Chuck, let me ask you this. Why do I want geothermal? And you talked about that 3-month differential
between the air temperature and the ground temperature.
And what you're saying that so when the air is cold, here's what you said. You said there's a 3-month difference between the air temperature and the ground. So when you need the heat, you got it, and when you need to cool down, you got it. It was something like that.
Exactly, Pete. And
it's always there.
The air temperature is about 3 months ahead of the ground temperature. So the ground holds the heat. The summer sun warms the ground up all summer and releases the heat into the water. I mean, you're 6 feet underground. You're still talking, depending on the soil you have, you're still at 45 or 50 degrees well into December. It's not until January or February that you get down to actually around 45 degrees, depending on the composition of the soil.
So when it's like 0 outside, right, the ground temperature
you're still at 40 degrees or so.
And that's the starting point for my heating system now.
Correct.
Big difference.
Yes.
Big difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same within the summertime. It's vice versa in the summer. When you're switching it over to air conditioning, now you're using a cooler ground temperature than the air temperature by quite a bit.
So you don't have to cool it as much as you normally would.
Right.
And you're dumping that extra heat into the earth.
Yes. The heat travels to the coolest object. So
you're basically using the ground as your energy source.
And eliminating any use of fossil fuels.
All fossil fuels eliminated, other than the electricity, which is produced by water, coal, natural gas, but at a more efficient plant.
So we're talking about something that kind of looks like a furnace, aren't we? I mean, when you say a heat, I mean, there's terms like heat pumps and a geothermal system. If you installed it in my basement, and I went down in my basement, what would I see?
If you had a forced air system like a normal natural gas furnace, that's just what it would look like. A little different scale, but it would look like that with pipes coming out of it, Pete.
That's
it? Yeah, you hook ductwork to it normally. You have a return air and a supply air, and the rest all happens inside.
So that's some alien-looking thing. It's a geothermal monster.
No, it
right?
would look very familiar. A couple of pipes and tubes coming out of it, but other than that, it looks very similar.
How reliable is it? I mean, do they work typically just like a furnace and have the same life expectancy, or is that even different?
They've become very efficient, and lately, in the past 4 or 5 years, they've come up with two-stage compressors, much like a two-stage gas valve in a furnace. These newer units are two-stage, variable speed blower motors. Very efficient. Those are the most efficient blower motors on the market now.
My other question was with the zone heating, that's becoming very popular, and a lot of traditional HVAC units are doing the different stages in the different zone heating in the building. Is that something that comes with the geothermal? Is it something you have to add to it? To heat specific parts of your home, constant temp.
With hot water, that would be she's kind of referencing the job that you just finished, actually, Chuck in Chili, where I think you could have this customer had the radiant floor heat with your geothermal.
Oh, yes, you can do that with geothermal. Yes,
right.
Heat pump. It'd be very much like a boiler system, only using a geothermal heat pump, which would require no fossil fuels. Much more efficient unit. But yeah, you can heat with hot water with these units, cool with cool water through an air exchanger. Forced air. There's many different variations you can do. You also can heat your domestic hot water with the residual heat from the heat pump.
Well, can I thaw my driveway out with the residual heat?
If you'd like to, Pete, we'll set that system up.
See,
Sure.
it can be done. It can be done. That'd be great.
Can you walk us through? I have an existing home, and I might be in the market for a new furnace in the near future, and maybe I'm like, oh, scrap it. Let me get geothermal system.
And Chuck, this is something you've done in your own home, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes. The first thing you need to do is determine your heat loss on your home. You measure your windows, you measure your walls, your R factor of your insulation, determine how many BTUs of heat you need.
So that would be like a BPI, like a building performance kind of audit type of thing, like we talked about last week?
Yes, or RG&E can help you with this stuff, but they won't perform that audit. But they have forums. You can do it yourself. You can have it done. There's software available. There's different ways of doing it.
No, there's a difference. What they were talking about last week was a total house audit. All right? And remember when he said first you make the house tight before you size your system? Chuck is not talking about sizing the system in a house that's already been tightened up and it's made, it's safe.
That
so this
makes
is
sense.
step two. This is step two.
That's right.
Right. You determine how many BTUs you need to heat, which is just very similar to what you do if you're going to place your gas furnace. You do it through the same process.
No different, right, John?
No difference
No
there.
different.
Same process there, and then select your unit you need from the geothermal, whatever size BTUs you require for your home, and then you go from there with the system.
Chuck, if I've got a house with a boiler, right, for hot water.
Right.
I'm sorry, for heating my house.
Mm-hmm.
Do I still need a boiler if I've got a geothermal system?
No.
It's obsolete now, right?
You would replace your
I would
boiler.
replace the boiler. I don't even need it anymore.
Correct.
Nice.
That's correct. In fact, Chuck just finished a house in Chili that actually has a geothermal boiler. And but Chuck, why don't we talk a little bit about your house? When we first, I first gave you a hand installing your system. It's going into fourth year.
Yep, fourth year.
And why don't expand a little bit on the savings, or because that's kind of what we wanted to be talking about anyways, or some of the savings. And we all know that with all the turmoil in the Middle East, the price of energy is just going to be going up, up, and up.
Well, that's what led me to actually to go out to Oklahoma State. Was I was heating with heating oil, and after Katrina and several other things, home heating oil quadrupled in price in some instances for various amounts of time. So I looked for another alternative, and that was what led me to install a system in my house. Now, without having to buy any heating oil or natural gas or anything, I'm probably saving somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 60% per month on home heating costs.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
50 to 60. I mean, well, you guys know better than I do, but that, to me, the average listener, that sounds pretty remarkable.
Well, yeah, according to the EPA, these geothermal systems are 45% more efficient.
Oh, at least, yeah, and that varies with the with the size of your house,
that's huge.
how much insulation, how well your house is built, and the size of your house, all that factors into your percentage of savings.
Right, and then if you get the Energy Star units, there's a label that the EPA has called Energy Star, and it's a measure of a piece of equipment's efficiency. Okay, if you get something like a geothermal system that is Energy Star rated, just the fact that it's Energy Star is worth a couple of $100 a month. Okay.
Does it cost more?
No.
Okay.
I'm going to get to a question with Chuck. Because I'm wondering. See, you have to have these Energy Star rated systems to qualify for the government financing. Okay. So Chuck, is there any special consideration when something's Energy Star? Are there any hidden costs? Is there anything we need to know? Or is it just like any other system? It just works better.
It just works better. It's
Okay.
there's nothing more complicated other than that. It's choosing a unit that is Energy Star rated would be your first consideration.
Mm-hmm. What about the soil conditions? Does that matter? You come to my property, does it matter what kind of soil I have, or sand, or clay soil, or wet soil, or does that matter?
Well, yes, it makes a difference in the efficiency of the unit for sure. It will work in any soil.
Okay.
Some soils are better than others.
Okay.
Dark, dense, moist clay is sometimes good for around here. There's a lot of clay in this area, so it's definitely effective in that type of soil.
I see.
222-1180, the number to call if you want to join in on the conversation. Again, that number 222-1180. This is Simply Green Radio here on Ask the Experts, brought to you by Simply Green Energy and Mr. Reuter. A website, folks, that you can visit, mysimplygreenenergy.com. Again, mysimplygreenenergy.com. In studio tonight with Maurice Aubrey, Mo, Pete Morisi, True Story Pete, and also with Brenna Hartman and their guest tonight, Chuck Strang, president of Total Heat Systems. We do need to cut away for a quick break, but we'll be back with more of Simply Green Radio here on Ask the Experts on News Radio 1180 WHAM.